This episode is brought to you by Google Chrome. You think you know a browser, but Gemini and Chrome? That's new. It can help you with practically anything on the web, like restoring a vintage motorcycle from a 50-page restoration blog, or finally break down that long article you've had open for weeks. Gemini and Chrome is here for it. Ready to make anything online make sense? There's no place like Chrome. Check responses, setup required, compatibility and availability varies, 18+.
This episode is brought to you by PayPal. You had plans for the last days of summer. And back-to-school shopping has its own plans. School supplies, dorm essentials, your list doesn't stop. Neither does the spending. But when you pay in full with PayPal, you can pay over time. No interest, no fees. Check out with PayPal and get back to summer. Subject to approval. Learn more at paypal.com/payinfor. PayPal Inc. NMLS 910457.
This message is brought to you by Apple Card. Shave ice by the beach, a trip to the state fair, and a throwback flick at the local drive-in. They're more than just items to check off the summer bucket list. They're also opportunities to earn 2% daily cash back when you use your Apple Card with Apple Pay. Apply for Apple Card now and use in minutes with Apple Pay. Subject to credit approval. Apple Card is issued by Goldman Sachs Bank USA, Salt Lake City branch. Terms and more at applecard.com.
Good evening, and welcome to Bit of an Animal, the South African Rugby Union podcast on the Global Gainline's podcast network. Joining me on the panel this evening, it's fellow Shark supporter Bandile. It's Stormers Till I Die, Bryce.
How's it, guys?
And representing the Lions, it's Hendrik.
Good evening. Thanks a lot.
Guys, there's 5 games to review, but there's one on everybody's mind. South Africa 16, New Zealand 33. At Ellis Park, nearly full. Badile, we haven't seen your face in a while. We lost the first game of a 4-match series. Still, it stings a little.
It was very unfortunate since we were leading at halftime. But I think it boiled down to not taking our opportunities. We had numerous times to kick in the kickable positions, and we just decided to go to the scrum, and it cost us. We were dominating, but we just couldn't get that finish.
Bryce, it's time for Manny Libok to start next week.
I've been saying. I think Rassie must stop with the circus and the games, and let's get serious. Let's get our best 10 on. Let's get Polo on the bench for insurance. Let's get serious, guys. But yeah, look, I mean, what can you say? I mean, with that dominance in the first half, I mean, our forwards were running through them like, I think every second carry Jasper Wiese got was like 5 meters or something, and then marks, and then I'm not sure about Eben, but like the loose forwards were really good on the day. And look, I don't know how long I've been saying this about Sacha, but every time he's at 10. You just don't know. You just don't realize that there's other backline players in the team. You know, even at the Stormers, you just I don't know. Maybe it's a Dobbo that's not coaching him there, because I can't understand if you're getting coached by Tony Brown, and this is not like some feedback that you're getting like, oh, we do have a Cheslin Cope, we do have a Damon Willemse, we do have a Damon Delendi on the outside, yet we don't see them. In fact, I can't remember how many times Andre Esthuizen was involved outside of that monster carry over Josh Morby. But yeah, in terms of the game, it stung in the same way that, you know, that Japan game stung against Eddie Jones. Like, we were so dominant. I felt like we were gonna demolish the All Blacks after halftime, and then just little moments, just little moments. It's that after that charge down, I think we all felt that was it. Maybe not like lost, but we just felt, okay, no, this is not going to be a Springbok run over. It's going to be it's probably going to be a tight game. We're probably going to win it by 3 points. And then And then the unthinkable happens, the unthinkable where New Zealand wins a scrum penalty against the Springboks. And I think that was it. I think there was nothing. After that, I knew that this game was over. There was no hope. We're gonna have to bounce back next week, because if we start losing scrum penalties against the opposition, then what are we? But yeah, it's disappointing, but it stung, because it was a game I thought we should have won by 15 points, but we ended up losing by 17. So yeah, I don't know how you guys felt, because that stung as badly as that Australia Ellis Park game. It's horrible.
It's an interesting dynamic because the two places they don't want to play New Zealand is Cape Town because of the significant support for New Zealand in Cape Town, and then Durban because New Zealand seem to adapt to the conditions way better than South Africans. Um, and then the idea that we play them in the Highveld would negate some of their ability, and which is interesting because New Zealand decided to base themselves for this tour in Cape Town, so they flew out to Joburg, but the Springboks are probably in Cape Town sooner than New Zealand now because New Zealand still have the game to play against Hendrik and Sibusiso and Demikosi's Lions later in the midweek fixture. So the one aspect that I kept forgetting to mention on this podcast and others is that I was a bit disappointed that they had so many games concentrated in the series in the Gauteng municipality, when I felt like they could have spread it around a little bit. One game in Gqeberha, one game in Mbobela, maybe a game at the Cheetahs Stadium in the Free State, that type of thing. Those games because I mean, yes, there's sort of like a lot of people in Gauteng, but you also get a better chance of like more people getting to watch these games live. As well as sort of like spreading out sort of the financial burden of like just expect all the Gauteng people to buy all the tickets. So it'd be very interesting to see, because it was good attendance for this game, but very interesting to see how many people show up for Lions versus New Zealand midweek. But Hendrik, this was at Ellis Park, your home stadium. As I said, very good attendance. We've lost now last year at Ellis Park to Australia in a massive surprise. This less so of a surprise, but not the manner in which I wanted to start the series.
No, it's not the manner you want to start any series. And I would say it was actually, from a Springbok supporter's point of view, it was a massive surprise. I don't think if you had asked any true Springbok supporter if they expected a loss, that they would have said yes. I think every true Springbok supporter was expecting us to win. So it comes as a surprise. It comes probably as I don't want to call it a wake-up call, because I know that there are people that, especially on social media, that's saying, yeah, no, the Springboks were big-headed, or this, or Rassie was arrogant, or whatever. I don't buy into that. I believe every player in the current squad, including the entire coaching team, works really, really hard, and I don't think they take anything for granted. I don't think there's anybody in the team that thought, we just need to pitch up to win this game. So it was a surprise to myself. Not so much the loss, because with the All Blacks, it's always on the cards. A 1 or 2 or 3 point loss is always there. Even the score line wasn't the worst thing. The worst thing to me was the 5 tries to 1. That I think that the scoreline, in a sense, flatters the Springboks, unfortunately, because 5 tries to 1, the scoreline could have been much worse. So that was, to me, that was the main thing. The other thing about the match specifically that bugs me, and I don't know how to what to make of it and how to understand this, was our scrum dominance was really, really good. Even until, let's say, close to the 50th minute, we were just all over them with the scrums. but we never managed to convert the scrum dominance to points, and we didn't manage to convert the scrum dominance to game dominance. Apart from the actual scrums, we didn't dominate the game. And unfortunately, you can talk about this all day long. Those that 7 minutes actually, or close to 7 minutes that we spent scrumming, like 5 or 6 meters from their try line, and we didn't score any points. We had scrum dominance. Nothing happened. In the end, they got a penalty against us, and they got out of there without us scoring points. That was the one of the major questions that I have, and I don't necessarily have an answer to that, except to say that if you play the second best team in the world, maybe take the 3 points, go back, regroup, start again. And I think obviously hindsight is the best teacher, so it's easy for us to say that that's what they should have done, but they backed themselves. And if we go back to the World Cup, there were times that the Springboks backed themselves, and it worked. So you can't penalize them for that. The other area that I rewatched the match today, and I made some careful notes, was we were totally outplayed at the rucks. Turnover ball was just it was deadly. The All Blacks were just deadly, and we know from experience. Everybody who watches rugby and who watches the Springboks and the All Blacks know that the All Blacks are the turnover kings. They know exactly how to attack when they've got quick turnover ball, and they can assess space and they assess players, and that's what they do. They attack space very, very quickly and very effectively. So all in all, really sad, but I'll say this: it's just made this series very, very interesting for any Springbok supporter.
Yeah, I figured New Zealand would win one game because look, these are two very good teams. I don't know how much we would have benefited if we had like clean swept them. I like the idea of adversity going into sort of a World Cup next year. The reality is that that's what makes Test rugby so exciting. It is the highest level of rugby union, unlike football, where like club football is actually the highest level of club football tactically. But the recent World Cup we saw, it's highest level in some areas. It's not as tactically astute, so it's somewhat more interesting to watch. And the reality about Test rugby also is that because it's especially like the top 5 teams, random stuff can happen. Or teams can sort of shift within game plans mid-game, and then teams can't adapt. It makes it more interesting to watch because it's less predictable. So I completely concur that like I don't think that we were overly arrogant or confident going up against New Zealand at Ellis Park. It's just that mid adjustments, and it reminds me a lot of 2 seasons ago in the URC when the Bulls dominated the Sharks in Durban with their scrum, but they didn't. Eventually, the Sharks actually won that game through and did the double of the Bulls that year through a miracle, really, of getting bullied in the scrum, but the Bulls not turning scrum dominance into points on the board. So if you can't make that connection, it's not as useful. Bandile, death taxes, and the New Zealand wing scoring 53 tries now.
Sure, yeah. He had one heck
Will
of a
Jordan,
game.
his name escaped me. Someone on YouTube called him Will Jordan the other day.
I just feel with that scrum dominance, I think a card should have come out there. I feel like he was a bit more, he seemed to be a bit more, I wouldn't say lenient, like maybe giving them a bit more benefit of the doubt in some areas. And then we committed one offense in our 22, and then he got a card. Yet we were in the red zone for quite a while, and they gave away a few penalties, and not even a warning was given. So it does happen in the game, but I just felt that had a huge effect on the game. A little bit of inconsistency.
Bryce, you concur with that assessment of like our execution in key moments was lacking?
I mean, how can you not? I mean, the one that stands out is the Malcolm Marks, which is it's so strange how I don't know how many caps Malcolm Marks is on, is something 90 or 80 something on, but yet he still made a mistake like that. So I don't know what is it up with Ellis Park, because it was the same thing against Australia, where even seasoned players all of a sudden can't put the ball down over the try line. So I think, like New Zealand, we need to learn to not play at Ellis Park. I think that's the lesson we need to take out of this. New Zealand shouldn't play at Wellington. We shouldn't play at Ellis Park. Every game should be played at either Mbombela, Mabeja, or Bloemfontein. Easy 3-0 sweep, no problem. But another thing I did, I think I saw the stat that we kicked 17 times and New Zealand kicked 18 times. And another thing that a commentator pointed out is that whenever the Springboks kick less than 20 times, they lose the game. It's something I couldn't believe, but it was true. Like every time we kick less than 20 times, we lose the game. And in this game in particular, I think that period where we went for scrums for 7 minutes and the pick and goes and the 3 pointers, we kind of we kind of lost our game. We kind of went away from our strengths because, yes, we like to say our scrums are our strength, but it's actually the kicking, the kicking, and then we win the ball back, and then we swing it out to the wings, and they do some magic over broken field defense. That's our DNA, but we hardly ever saw that. I can't even remember when we attacked off broken field in that game, and New Zealand must have done it 3 times in that game. So yeah, I think that's going to be the takeaway that Rusty's going to take. Because I remember against Australia, Tony Brown did mention that we played too much in that game and we kicked too little. And I think the coaches are going to say the same thing in this game. They're going to say we didn't give ourselves enough chances of broken field. We didn't kick enough, and that's going to be the takeaway from. And I think going into going into next week, we're going to see a lot more bombs, and I think we're going to tone it down on the 7 minute scrum periods, because I think this is not MMA. We're not here to beat up the opponent. We here to get points on the board. So yeah, that's my take of it.
Yeah, come to Dagestan.
Yeah.
I will say though, Damien Willemse was excellent under the high ball. It's just so good. By far and away our best fullback right now. Justin Colby was excellent. Unfortunately, he hobbled off, so we'll see how that affects the game. Curtly Arendse had to go for with the HIA, so we'll see which wings are available to us next week. Andre is a very good cameo, sort of early cameo of the bench, giving us sort of a 6-2/5-3 split. Jannik Wessel's coming on at lucid proper. Malcolm Marx start playing the whole game as I thought that might happen. Eben Esabeth haven't been injured for quite some time. Actually had a solid game, and Paul de Villiers did Paul de Villiers stuff and like excelled at the open side section. Hendrik, what changes would you like to see going to, we always say on this podcast, the coaching staff won 2 back-to-back World Cups. They make decisions, we make suggestions. What suggestions do you have for next week?
Yoch, yeah, how long do we have? No, just before we get into that, let me just make one comment regarding what you mentioned earlier about the venues. If you take outside of Gauteng, the rest of South Africa has the same amount of tests that the USA has. So if you think about it in that way, it's I was as disappointed to know that the rest of South Africa, let's not even go to the ticket prices at the moment, but just the fact that the only test out of Gauteng is in Cape Town. That's early. Early cameo of the bench. Giving us sort of a 6-2/5-3 split. Jannik Wessel's coming on at lucid proper. Malcolm Marx start playing the whole game. as I thought that might happen. It's just I want to use the Afrikaans word teleurstellend. It's disappointing,
Yeah.
but nevertheless, let's leave that there for now. um, we were talking about what changes. Well, to be honest, I honestly thought that Rassie was going to choose Libok for the starting lineup for this past weekend, and I suspected that he would put Pollard on the bench for the reason that I think Libok and Sasha are more similar players than Pollard. I think we all know from the history that Pollard is usually the guy that you want on in the last 10 to 15 minutes when things get really tight. And we know that even though Pollard didn't have the best URC season, probably he's going to be the guy that under pressure slots that last penalty that you need. So I was surprised that he had Sasha and Mani Libok in the same 23. The change that I expect is exactly that. I expect Libok to start next weekend and Pollard on the bench. And that's not to say that I think Sasha had a particularly bad game. He didn't have a particularly bad game. He had 2 fumbles. And then I think his confidence slipped a little bit throughout the match, but it wasn't that bad really. Social media makes it out to that him and Grant Williams had shockers, but they didn't. If you really go and rewatch the match, they actually didn't have bad matches as much as social media would make it sound.
Mm.
Further, I would love to see Andre Esterhuizen in the starting lineup. If he's, I'm not sure whether he also had to come off with an injury at some stage, but I would love to see Andre Esterhuizen get a starting berth. Regarding our wings, it would be a major blow to us if those 2 wings can't play next week. We know Cheslin Colby. I mean, that guy is just worth his weight in gold. Regarding Cheslin and Sasha, I would have said this. There was about 2 quite easy kicks at poles that Cheslin took in the beginning. And I would have loved to see Rassie give Sasha the instruction to take those kicks to get his confidence up, because that would have helped him, I believe, in terms of his goal kicking. I don't think Cheslin Colby is the long-term answer for goal kicking. It should be the number 10. The number 10 should have the skills to do that and the confidence in the long run. Other changes, there's not a lot of changes that I would like to see. It sounds like Sia is making a comeback. I know that it really seems that Sia's presence in the team lifts the team emotionally. It always seems that way. It seems that he lifts the nation emotionally. So I suspect that's going to happen. I still think Paul de Villiers had a really good match, and it would be difficult to choose between the 2 of them, except that Sia, his worth as a captain, might bring a bit more to the table at this stage. The other thing that I would like to see is the front row staying on. As long as you're dominant, let them stay on. Let them go the full 50 minutes or 55, and then change your front row. But I do believe we need to see Thomas Eto'o somewhere in the mix. I don't like to see too much of this hybrid player situation at the moment, where Jan Hendrik Wessels and Andre Esterhuizen and Marco van Staden and who's the other guy?
Grant Williams played on the wing.
Yeah, but especially where it's planned, where there's too much changes, or where players are too often hybrid players. Especially on hooker, you need a specialized hooker. You need a specialized a guy at 9 on wings, wherever. But I'm not too crazy about the hybrid idea.
It's interesting because like the thing that disappointed me is we were looking pretty solid but we weren't executing, especially in the first half. But there was only a 1 point difference in the first half, so no panic stations there. But then the the issue I really had was as soon as we went 10 points behind, instead of like calming things down, kicking for the corner, sort of like rumbling and getting points, getting a 7 points, we almost like tried to kick it into a different gear. And that didn't work out because it played into New Zealand's hands. So there was that aspect. And it's weird watching Andre Pollard's journey from high school all the way to him being effectively the Sasha Feinberg and Gomez Zulu of his time, and then sort of evolving into the elder statesman. So shout out to Andre Pollard, who's like outlived guys. We won the
Absolutely.
Junior World Cup alongside like Jan Serfontein is retired, Kitshoff's retired, but obviously not on his own doing, unfortunately, because of a neck issue, that type of thing. So Jason Colby was in that team with him as well. So they're both still going there. Um, Bandile, changes you'd like to see for next week's match in Cape Town?
Well, it'd be nice to have Sia back because yeah, his leadership was definitely needed. Peter Steph Tutoy, I just think he didn't speak enough to the referee just to mention and say, hey, they've given away 3 penalties in the red zone. Don't you want to give them a card or just a team warning? Something like that. Not that he's a bad player or anything, but I just wish he would have been a little bit more vocal on the field. So I'm hoping next week we can get that leadership back, or someone else can step up, or he can step up and just communicate a bit more and get the boys rallied up a bit more.
The hybrid player thing is also interesting because it used to be a very negative thing. Like I know it hurt Brent Russell all those years where it was like, oh, I can play fly off, fullback, wing, and that type of thing. And it seemed to be negative, a negative effect for him in South Africa. But when he moved to France, they seem to embrace it there because I guess there's more of a hybrid situation going on there. But right, so like we see guys like Dion Fourie playing multiple positions. Do you think we'll see him through the series? I think there's a chance we'll see Dion Fourie in one of these 4 games.
Yeah, I mean, I can't see the Villiers playing all 4 games. I mean, that, and it's back to back to back to back. So I'm sure in that fourth test at least, we're gonna see we're going to see maybe Dion. I don't know who else is in the squad that covers six other than Van Staden. So I think we're gonna see Dion. Although it does raise a question, like let's say we do lose in Cape Town. I mean, do you really want to be the coach that loses another series to the All Blacks? So that's going to be another talking point because now you don't want to um, work your players out and destroy them for the season just to win the series. So that Cape Town result is probably going to say a lot. I think if we do win in Cape Town, I think we're going to see Dion and maybe coming for Paul de Villiers, and maybe we see Ben Jason Dixon coming for Peter Stiff. For the Cape Town game, I know Kirtley's probably going to be out because of the HIA. I know you can't play the 10 days after your HIA, so he's going to be out. And personally, I would love to see Ethan Hooker there. I think there's just a value having a wing like that just to contest the high ball and the work rate. And I think Ethan Hooker is probably a better option at this stage than Kane Moody. I don't know how training is going in the camp, but I think Ethan Hooker, I'd back him. I would back Sia to start at six, and unfortunately, I would get rid of Marco van Staden off the bench and move Paul de Villiers there. I don't know if I want to move Volko to the bench because we started so well with Ox and Volko, and I don't know if that is the way, if we want to move back to Thomas de Toy, or because unless we bring on Volker Low early on and then we get dominance in the second half, like in Wellington. Other than that, I don't see any other real changes outside of like I mentioned earlier, the halfbacks. I would like Hendrik said, I would love Mani and Pollard on the bench. The nines, I would keep it the same. Have Grant start, have Kobus on the bench. Yeah, I don't. I would be very hesitant to change this team again, full changes, because I mean, that's been a talking point among fans where maybe too much change makes the cohesion of the team, suffer. So try to keep it as much as possible while strengthening as well. Maybe Luat comes on in the bench. I don't. Maybe he's better than Corbus. Otherwise, I would keep it as is with the halfbacks, Sia and maybe Thomas Tutoy start on the bench.
What's going to be interesting to see is that there's unlikely to be that many changes other than the enforced changes due to injuries
Mm,
and or HIA, that type of thing. Um, but there will be an evolution in game plan, and everybody was quite keenly watching this game. You even see Northern Hemisphere podcasts to previews and reviews of this series. So all eyes were on this game. But the reality is that now that South Africa unfortunately lost the first game, which can happen in a four-game series against a
mm,
formidable opponent, um, Cape Town is like it's
mm,
going to garner even more eyeballs. So
mm,
because so much is on the line, and it was also interesting is obviously the fact that the trophy can be split in two. So
mm,
like if it does go down to a draw, the series itself, both nations can keep halves of a trophy, which is an interesting concept because going into the series, I was like, oh, why are we doing this all four? Because it could go through a draw, and a draw sort of
mm,
feels
mm.
anticlimactic. Guys, that rounds off our review of the first game of the Rugby's Greatest Rivalry. We'll take this moment before we get to the Currie Cup coverage to remind everybody if you're finding value in this podcast, please like and subscribe. Get in the click the notification bell. We've ported a bit of an animal to its own YouTube channel, like the Irish podcast. The Interpro show did the same. So we're all sort of evolving from the Global Gainline. Still continue to watch the Global Gainline. Still a lot of good coverage on there. The URC Rewind is there. The Wolsey Journal, they just did a review of sort of their perspective on the greatest rivalry. So yeah, and thank you for everybody who's watched this so far, gentlemen. Currie Cup, the longest running rugby union tournament in the world. Started on Friday. There were three games on Friday and one on Sunday, just to give the Springboks all the attention on Saturday. No women's Springbok game this weekend, unfortunately. We did do the double on Fiji um, last week. We rounded that off, but the game started on Friday when Griquas overcame the Pumas in Mbombela. Usually the Griquas are winning in Kimberley. Um, Hendrik, Griquas look really good. They're the defending champions. They have like a heated rivalry for the Pumas. They keep meeting them in the SA Cup final. But I often
Mm.
say that the Griquas have a near URC level team, and it's credit to them. They do not have a lot of resources there, but they build this team so intelligently, recruiting players. Who are like on the fringes of your C franchises and giving them the platform to sort of springboard their careers.
Yeah. I'll tell you something. It's going to be a special team that will stop Griquas from winning the Currie Cup again this year. To me, they are head and shoulders. They stand out head and shoulders above the rest at the moment. And every round, it seems like they're getting better. I'm really impressed with them. I would even dare to venture to say that if they play against the URC teams at the moment, that they would be really good competition. I was telling another guy last week that when you watch a match, and sometimes the close-ups of the cameras are good enough to see the players' eyes. And with the Griquas, you can see the determination on their faces. It's like they're really playing with determination and with a goal. And that's not just to defend the Currie Cup, it's to really win it again. And on that point, it's so disappointing to see, albeit we all understand that it's not the four URC unions strongest teams, because we understand the whole situation regarding the URC and that they're preparing for that. But it's still disappointing to see them, all four those teams, at the bottom of the log, in the bottom half of the log. It's not the way it should be. They have more than enough resources to make sure that they've got good coaches and good players. They shouldn't be outshone completely by the 4 small unions or the small 4 provinces.
It's interesting because if we look across the Pumas team, Sango Kamlashe is headed to the Bulls after the Currie Cup. Navaldo Flores, a Varsity Cup superstar in his own right. So Pumas have a good team, and this is the Pumas team who actually defeated Griquas in the SA Cup final. And on the Griquas side, Griquas actually did some interesting recruiting. Like they'll get younger players like Liam Kun and the inside center from Stormers, whose name escapes me at the moment. But they've also got more senior guy like
Dylan
Stefan
Daba.
Kutsia. Yeah, Zunandaba came from Stormers a bit more. Zunandaba was actually captain for this game. But Damien Marcus is the player that I think the more recent inside center. But then they got Stephen Kutsia from Newcastle. Dylan Martz headed to the Bulls as well. Gershon Magic Weir is definitely gonna get snapped up by some team because I mean, over the course of the last 3 years, he played for the Griffins. They played one game for the Sharks as a loanee. He then excelled at Griquas again, winning the Currie Cup. Then he played for he was part of the training squad alongside Dylan Mart at Rice's Stormers. But then he went over to Sale and excelled there as well. His social media is also blowing up. I noticed that he's like tripled his Instagram followers, so that's a plus for him. So Griquas was interested to see once they lose all these players how they're going to rebuild as well. I think they'll still be very competitive. I think people like. My understanding is speaking to some of these players is they actually like the environment in Kimberley. It's more of a small town environment, and you can really focus on your rugby. But the stadium also helps them in a little because it's not a huge stadium, so they get a lot of people in there, and it's really become the people's team in that thing. It's always like disappoints me because years ago I was in Kimberley driving back from sort of somewhere else in South Africa, and we did stop over at Kimberley overnight, and I thought to myself I should just go see. There wasn't a game on. I should just go see the stadium, but didn't get around to it. So still very much a disappointing aspect of that for me. I'll blame my coworkers at the time, Sven and Isra. Bryce, the next game on the billing, your Stormers, or the Stormers 23 as they're called in the Currie Cup, went to Pretoria and defeated the Bulls quite convincingly. If we look across both teams, it's very much a mix of young players and fringe players, but still good to get a victory over a URC franchise.
Yeah, I mean, it was a surprising result for the Stormers. I think this season I went to go watch one of the Stormers Currie Cup games in at the stadium, and it seemed like they're a little bit more structured this season compared to the previous season. I think the previous season it was almost like an afterthought. This one is a little bit more. They took a little bit more thought to it. They got their own dedicated coaching staff. So I'm quite impressed that they are putting results. Although I don't think they're in the same class as the other 4 Currie Cup teams, because I think it's the Cheetahs, Griquas, Pumas, and Boland are. I think they in a different league compared to the unfortunately, like Hendrik said, the URC teams. But yeah, it was a good result. Quite. I don't think I catch the full game, but I did catch a bit of the highlights, and it's good, but I don't know how much to take out of it because the Bulls are at the moment dead last in the competition. I don't know if they've gone through a player drain or something because in the past couple of years the Bulls used to be a quite a force in the Currie Cup because they used to send out almost your C level teams in the Currie Cup, and now I don't know if you guys have any knowledge of what
Yeah.
happened with the Bulls. If there's any.
So they're taking a different approach, similar to what my Sharks and your Stormers did last season, in that they split the team into multiple categories. It's the guys who are with the Springboks, then it's the guys who they would consider being more regular URC players who then just have to focus on URC preseason, and then the sort of up and coming guys or people who might be considered within the URC system, but haven't gotten a lot of game time through the last URC season. They then play the Currie Cup up until a certain point. Should they make the playoffs, then things might change because the playoffs sort of fall more into the area of like where you might have played a few warm-up games before the URC starts in earnest. So the Bulls and the Lions have sort of adapted because the Lions also were quite good last season as well, but they've all adapted the attritional sense that the Stormers and the Sharks had used before. Players to watch though on the Stormers team, that Ezekiel Ngombeni, former Marty's player, captaining the team. Kyle Smith, very good player at fly half. Marcus Muller at outside center. Baby Bok, World Cup winning Baby Bok as well. And then on the Bulls team, Make from the Baby Box was in the mix. JJ Theron won the Junior World Cup not too long ago, and then obviously Mdebele, Baby Box captain, who captained the team who's departing the Bulls for the Sharks, and then Lewin Hillemeier is moving in the other direction. Speaking of the Sharks, Bandile, our Sharks hosted a game in sort of a Pietermaritzburg. This is the credit to the Sharks. This is the fourth time they've done it in 2 years. They're always taking the game to the people. Last year they took it to Pietermaritzburg and another stadium. This year the 2 weeks ago they took the game to the people and they had a game in KwaMashu, and this week it's in Pietermaritzburg, and they drew with Hendricks Lions Currie Cup team. Badile, your thoughts on this draw?
Sure, yeah, I think the try was scored in the 83rd minute. It looked like the Sharks had won the game, and then the Lions managed to score but just missed the conversion, which a draw was better for, well, yeah, would have been better for us than them in that moment, since they lost the conversion. Sorry. Yeah, I just feel like we started well and we just couldn't finish in the last few minutes. Maybe it's a question of conditioning. But I think with the new URC system, they have to give younger players a chance to play, and because the URC is basically almost the whole year. It's a very long tournament, so you have to get creative in how you rotate your squads.
Yeah, players to look out for on the Sharks billing would be Lewin Hillemeier. Had a very good game again. I think he got man of the match. Hendrik can tell us about that because he actually watched the full game. Lewin Hillemeier, like I said, is headed to the Bulls. Unfortunately, I'm not overly enthused about that. Jakub Purchase had a good game again. Baby Bok winning World Cup winning Rasivaga. Good game on the wing. Overall, it's a very sort of youthful front row again with Rambo Kubeka, Liam van Wyk, and Ngobese. Jacques Marais is making his first appearance in the Currie Cup this season. Sia Masuku was on the bench alongside Albie Bester. It's reasonably consistent Sharks team that they selecting in the Currie Cup. Changes here and there, and obviously when the New Zealand game was around as well, there was some rotation as to that as well. Hendrik, this was the first competitive senior game for Baby Box superstar Ethan Adams.
I was so happy to see his name on the sheet. I expected him much earlier in the season. I was disappointed in the Lions coaching staff that he hadn't made an appearance sooner. I mean, that guy is something. I will say this, based on his build, I'm not so sure if his future lies in the backline, to be honest. I used to coach as well, and when I see him, I see a hooker that's gonna cause chaos internationally. But I mean, he lives up to his nickname, the Tank. You know, he's an absolute force of nature on the field. And what I really like about him is his positive attitude. You can just see him whenever the camera focuses on him, he's like positive and he's enjoying the rugby. And to me, that's one of the most important aspects, especially for professional players, when you see that they enjoy rugby. I would say just to come back to the rest of the Lions team, I'm really excited about guys like Liko Nafinka, Latikanela, who has also sort of discovered that in this year's Currie Cup. Those guys, even Guillermo Mentu, who had a really good match on Friday as well. So there's a lot of players, but I do believe that the URC franchises are going to have to maybe look at a little bit of balance in terms of utilizing some of the URC players, because it's a great way to keep those guys in match fit condition. But now it seems like with all four of the URC unions, they've kept the URC players absolutely one side. And by the time that the URC rolls in, that will be their first matches. Their first match in the URC will be their first match in many months, apart from the matches against the All Blacks. So I would love to have seen a bit more wisdom and not saying that they must play the entire squad, but maybe have a lock in this match and maybe one of the front row guys and a center or whatever, just to keep also the cohesion between the entire group, just to keep the cohesion better within the mix of all the players.
Interesting, yeah. There's sort of a balance to that. And then they might counter argument of like, oh, we need to wrap these guys in cotton wool because like last year, the Sharks like tore his knee and then he wasn't available for this after the URC. But there's definitely pros and cons. I've never actually seen Rendo du Plessis start for the Lions at 8, Hendrik. How did he go as it relates to that?
He was fantastic. I'm a big Renzo du Plessis fan, and I unfortunately went off somewhere just before 30 minutes or so with the, I think it was an HRA, I'm not 100% certain, and then he never came back on. But he went really well. He's such a good ball carrier. And I'm disappointed. That's one of the things that I need to write an email to the Lions about, is that this was only his first start of the season. And if you consider that 2 years ago, he was the actual player of the tournament, and he's not become worse. He's become better. So I was disappointed that this was his first start, and then also it was a little bit out of position. But I mean, eighth man is still within his range. So yeah, that was. I'm sorry for him that he had to leave the field as well. But he's to me he's part of the future, and unfortunately, the Lions. With some of the players with a lot of potential, they seem to let slip through their fingers, because somebody like Renzo will be picked up, even if it's an overseas team, French side or whatever. Somebody's going to pick him up if he doesn't get more playing time. The same with Reinhard Jonker, who only got selected in the URC towards the end of the last season, like the last 3 matches when Henku van Wyk got injured. And I mean, Reinhard Jonker is such a good player. He should be in the mix there.
And then the final game, I will say though, lots of good baby Bok players within the Lions system right now. If I look across this team, I can see already 5 that have been baby Boks over the last 2 years, which is a good. Even they had Luke Conan, who's generally a loose forward at number 23. The final game that kicked off today at 3 p.m. In Bloemfontein, well, they call it the Free State Cheetahs. I'm calling it the Faf de Klerk Cheetahs right now, Hendrik. You are the 3 of us, of the 4 on the panel, were actually able to watch this game. Cheetahs, it's weird. They struggled a lot last season in the Currie Cup. They nearly didn't make it to the Currie Cup Premier Division. And just a few key signings of giving a high level halfback. And now they've already secured playoff position in this tournament, second behind Griquas on the log. Cheetahs could go on to win this whole thing, Hendrik.
They could, but as I said earlier, they're going to have to get past the Griquas. But to come back to Faf, there's this saying that one swallow doesn't make a summer, something to that effect. But in this case, I will say that one Faf can make a massive difference, and he has. He's made a huge difference, and I respect him, and I take my hat off to him for getting involved, because you can literally see on the field how he actually mentors the younger players or the other players with obviously loads of experience. So I'm really happy for Faf that he's there and that he's still playing really good rugby. You know, and I know there's a lot of people that's still questioning why he's not in the Springbok group at the moment. But I mean, you can't have you can only have so many scrum halves in the Springbok group. But he's still on standard for that, I would say. Today's match between the Cheetahs and the Cavaliers was one of the strangest matches in a long time. The first half was probably the most boring rugby I've seen this year. It was one try each, but it was like they almost invited each other to eventually go and score a try. And then in the second half, it was like the Cheetahs decided, okay, we actually need to become a little bit more creative in playing this match. But then at some stage towards the end of the second half, the Boland Cavaliers ended up with 4 yellow cards overlapping. And for about a minute or maybe half a minute or something, they actually had 11 players on the field, which was just crazy. And then they started coming back onto the field, and then the Cheetahs got a yellow card, and eventually they were like 14 players each. So that was quite weird. But yeah, the Cheetahs victorious there at the end, 33-24. And yeah, if I have to put my money on 2 teams to make the final, it will be the Griquas and the Cheetahs. And yeah, it's going to be tough for anybody to beat the Griquas, but we know sport and rugby is a funny thing, and that's why we love it, because you can never predict what's going to happen.
Credit to Boland as well. They've proven that last year wasn't a flash in the pan. They've been consistent this year as well. They maybe didn't do as well as I'd hoped they would do in the SA Cup, especially Lisa B, our fellow contributor here, died in the wool Boland supporter. So the guys, to round off before we actually sign off, we're going to go to Bandile, and we're going to go to everybody really, but we start with Bandile. I'm going to put you on the spot and go score prediction for Springboks versus New Zealand, Cape Town Stadium. Bandile.
I think we can take it by 3 points. 18-15 to South Africa.
Awesome. Bryce?
I'm gonna go bold, guys. I think we're gonna pull out the British and Irish Lions second test. It's gonna be 32-14.
Excellent. Hendrik?
To the Springboks. Okay, just
I hope so.
Just to be sure. No, I'm with Bandile on this one. I think it's going to be a street fight to the death, and I think the Boks will do it, but a close margin, something like 3 points. Whatever the score is going to be, it's because this is do or die for the Springboks. If they don't win this one, they can't win the series anymore.
Indeed. Thanks everybody for watching. From myself and Bryce from...
Wait. What about your prediction?
Oh. Am I allowed to predict? Oh, okay. Springboks by 4 points. Close game. But yeah, we'll pull through pure miracle. I will be there thanks to the kindness of strangers. But yeah, Springboks by 4. Until next week, from myself and Bryce from the Mother City, and Hendrik and Bandile from the Place of Gold, Igoli. As we say every week, in Rassie, we trust.